Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Midland Trust's webinar for New Year, New Investment. Today, we're going to go just a general overview, touch on self-directed IRA basics, but we're going to dig in a little bit more to the most common investments we like to see in our clients' accounts, different asset types that people are investing in. So I'll be your presenter today. My name is Matt Calhoun. I'm a Senior Business Development Associate here at Midland. You'll see my email address and direct phone number there. So throughout this, if you have any questions, you can shoot me an email or give me a call. Also on our website, you can book an appointment with me as well. So if there's anything, follow-up questions, don't be afraid to reach out. You will also see this at the very end. So if you don't jot it down right now, feel free to get that at the very end. A little bit about Midland IRA. So some of the services that we offer are self-directed IRA administrators. Many people don't know we're also 1031 exchange qualified intermediaries. We also offer escrow services, doc custody, and some other services, but obviously self-directed IRAs is our main business, with main offices in Chicago and Fort Myers, and Sioux Falls, South Dakota as well. Midland currently has under custodian $3 billion in client assets and over 20,000 account holders across the country. First disclaimer that we'll throw on there, we make no commissions just because we don't sell you the investments. When you have a self-directed IRA, you do get to choose the direction you want to invest. We're not pointing you or telling you where to put your money. It's really at your own discretion on where these funds are going to. And Midland's role is to administer those as through guidelines of the IRS. We don't give the tax or legal advice to our clients or investment advice. Our offices are operated with individuals with these backgrounds in legal and tax fields, and many of our staff members do have a certification, a CISP. And currently, Midland has a 4.9 out of 5 customer satisfaction rating. Someone mentioned we may have a sound problem. Anyone else having a sound issue, or can you hear me fine? Okay, perfect. Sounds like we got a pretty concise, all good on the hearing side. So thank you, everyone. Perfect. So we touched on it already. So throughout that disclaimer as well, Midland does not give investment advice or endorse any particular products. All information, including this webinar and material that we offer, is for educational purposes. Obviously, please consult with an attorney, accountant, financial advisor before entering any type of investment. So we'll start off with what is a self-directed IRA. Other than a catchy marketing term that people know, there's not much difference in a self-directed IRA than a normal IRA. We'll kind of touch on what the similarities are. So the same time IRAs were established, what we know as the self-directed IRA was established too. They're actually the same thing, the same laws that started one, started the other. They are tax-sheltered vehicles that you can invest money into through contributions, through employers. So same thing there. You can self-direct a traditional IRA, Roth IRA, SEP, simple, all the same. What makes them self-directed is that you can choose the assets you want to invest in. Most people think that IRAs can only invest in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds because that's what a lot of large companies, your Fidelities, your Charles Schwabs, they offer those products. They don't offer anything else. They sell you the stocks, bonds, mutual funds. So people think that's all you can invest in, when actually you can invest in anything. The only two things that you can't invest in that are outlined are life insurance and collectibles. And we'll go over a lot of different investment selections today. Contributions could be tax deductible. You can still make contributions to the self-directed IRA, although most of our clients are funding self-directed IRAs at Midland through transfers from other IRAs or rollover from old employer plans as well. And the same thing as the IRAs, that you're normally thinking of, the obviously main objective is to build retirement wealth, building wealth for your retirement savings. So we kind of touched on what the similarities between what we know as self-directed IRAs and your more traditional thought IRAs are. Let's talk about a little bit of the differences as well. And a lot of questions are kind of pouring into. So we'll touch on all questions. I'm going to answer them all at the end. That way we kind of get through as much as we can. So thanks for throwing those in there. Definitely type them in. We'll get through as many as we can there at the end. So some of the differences that you'll see with the self-directed IRA, same tax advantages, same type of accounts. You can self-direct traditional Roth, SEP, simples, solo 401ks. Those can all hold the exact same investments that we offer as self-directed. Investment options obviously are your choice. So we touched on life insurance and collectibles being the two assets that are basically outlined as being prohibited inside of an IRA account. This opens the door for a lot of different types of investments. And obviously there's some gray areas what can be administratively feasible to be done, and there's different ways to work around. We can obviously go into each different situation. So as you have, if your investment isn't mentioned here, just let us know and we can try and figure a way that Midland can administer it and make sure it still falls within the guidelines. Administrative fees, a lot of times those are kind of hidden on the big brokerage accounts. A lot of people know what 12B1 fees are, wrap charges, and so on. They kind of wrap it all into, hidden ways. Your 401k does have fees. You just may not see where they are. They're not going to pop up on your statement. With a self-directed IRA, you're going to see it out front. You get to choose what your fee option is. Midland does give you a couple options, and those are designed for certain type of investor. One makes sense for if your strategy is a little bit different, multiple assets and smaller dollar amounts. A different one may make sense for you. So we do give some options on what fees you're actually going to pay. And what we like to say is true diversification. So a lot of people say, I like to diversify my portfolio, and that really tends to mean in banks and brokerage IRAs is I'm investing in a lot of different stocks. And a lot of times the stock market does tend to move in one direction. Now, you may have some outliers here and there that overperform the market, but overall the market tends to move in one direction. With self-directed IRAs, you do get to move into different asset classes, so you can try to diversify a little bit more than just being stuck in the stock market. So here's some of the asset classes we're going to touch on today. So a little bit of time on individually. So we'll start with real estate, secured promissory notes next, single member LLCs, private placement and private stock, precious metals, foreign currency exchanges, and foreign trading. And we'll touch on a few more that are offered as well. So we'll start with real estate. So all types of real estate qualify to be held inside of a retirement account. These are just a couple of examples, obviously single-family homes, multifamily, which include apartment buildings, condos, commercials, land improved and unimproved. You can also invest in trust deeds, and obviously tends to come and you can invest, partnering as well. And yes, you will have a copy of the presentation that will be available to you as well at the very end, and a recording of this. Okay. Some important rules with direct real estate investing. So when I say direct real estate investing, I really mean the IRA is the direct buyer of a property. Whether the end goal of that property is to improve it and sell it, or if we're going to hold on to it, rent it out, and collect rental income, it'd be a direct purchase with a closing that the IRA is doing. So in that situation, the IRA gets listed as the buyer. So you'll see Midland Trust Company as custodian, FBO John Smith as our example. This is what gets listed on the contract, the deed, basically anything that has to do with who owns that property. This is to show that it's not you personally that is purchasing the property. The IRA is purchasing the property separate from you. It shows an arm's distance. There's no confusion on whether you own it or the IRA. It's on the deed that the IRA is the owner. We also like to see a percentage listed, especially in cases where you're doing, partnering, either partnering with personal funds, a business partner, anything that, you'll have multiple owners on the property by intents in common, we definitely want to see a percentage listed. And the percentage would be based upon purchasing of the property, the equity in the deal. So somebody can't be basically a advice partner and you're throwing them 10%. It's really going to be based on, purchasing the property, how much money is going into the deal, and the percentages are listed there. Next part goes into, this is for investment purposes only, so you don't get any personal use on the property. You wouldn't be able to live in the property, and then we'll kind of go through who the prohibited parties who can't live in the property are. So outside of the prohibited parties, yourself personally, basically getting personal use or personal benefit from the property, you could rent it out then. And then income expenses are going to flow in and out of the property based on the ownership as well. So what I mean by that is you rent the property out, your tenants pay rent, the rent comes back to the retirement account, treated basically as an investment return. So you're getting that tax deferred status of an IRA account doing the investment. The money flows back to the retirement account. If you did have a partner, obviously the rent would be split based on the percentages. Now, expenses work the same way. If the rental property needs a new roof, the IRA account will pay its share of the expense, or for anything else that comes in. So, kind of goes in the examples. Rent checks are paid to the IRA. Obviously, if you have a management company or an LLC, it's a little bit different. But the checks aren't going to go to you personally. They're actually going to go to the retirement account, and the retirement account is going to be able to keep those checks. We'll go over prohibited parties here as well. So here's a basic understanding of some prohibited parties. So obviously you see IRA holder there in green, that's the UR here for our client. Prohibited parties would include their spouse, and then above that would be parents and grandparents, and then below children, spouses of the children, grandchildren, spouses of grandchildren. So we always like to say that up and down the family tree would be a prohibited party, left and right would not be. So yes, you could rent out to an uncle, a cousin, and so on. Those would most likely not be considered prohibited parties to your retirement account. So not all family is prohibited parties, but lineal family would definitely be considered a prohibited party. And there, if there's anything else, they'll just kind of know. The law does go into certain business partners and some other ones that could be considered disqualified people to your retirement account, but this is pretty much the easiest way to think of it. Different ways that you can purchase real estate using your retirement account. So let's go with the easiest one first, cash purchase. The IRA is 100% owner of the property. It has all the cash to purchase the property without getting a loan, and purchases it. Most simple option. Second one we'd see would be partnering. So your IRA can partner with, we said, a friend, associate, family member, or even yourself. So this is where, of course, that first one comes in, where we say, here's the prohibited parties, and then we throw out that partnering one, and everyone has questions at that point. So what that becomes is, as long as on a new deal, completely new property that you don't own, your family members don't own, your IRA is going to purchase it. You can partner with personal funds at that point, parents, grandparents, and so on. They can go in on that deal with you and purchase that property. We want to see those percentages listed, right there, knowing who owns what percentage of that property, and then you are going to keep it that way. So at that point, once we already do own the property in the retirement account, you can't transact with those prohibited parties again. So you wouldn't be able to sell your spouse your portion out of your retirement account. So I hope that kind of clears up, and we can answer specific questions later on. But on a brand new deal, brand new property, you can partner with those. And partnering can be obviously purchasing as tenants in common. We may also see a joint venture agreement, multi-member LLCs, different entity structures as well. So you're not just limited to directly purchasing the real estate. There are some other options for purchasing as well. Kind of leads us into the checkbook control option. We'll touch this a little bit on the single member LLCs, but when you hear checkbook control, it's another popular marketing term. It basically means an IRA owns an LLC 100%, is the sole owner of an LLC. There is a manager, sometimes third party, sometimes it's going to be the account holder is the manager, non-paid, and the IRA will transfer IRA funds to an LLC bank account, and the LLC can then make the purchase. Obviously, different benefits of doing LLCs, pooling funds together, but the real reason people like Checkbook Control is it gives them the ability to purchase directly from the retirement account, basically writing the checks out of it themselves, quick turnaround on purchasing. If a water heater breaks or there's some kind of major expense that comes up, it gives them the ability to act on that right away. Midland, we have really quick turnaround times. We will try and get an expense out in 1 to 2 business days. We can wire it, we can ACH, but even as quick as our turnaround times can be, the ability to write a check right then and there helps you a lot. So definitely Checkbook Control is another popular option. And then something that people like real estate because they can leverage it, you are able to borrow money and purchase real estate in the form of what we call a non-recourse loan. So different than what you may see your normal Fannie or Freddie loans. Non-recourse loan is a non-personally guaranteeing loan. So you're not personally guaranteeing a loan. They're not looking at your personal assets. There's no collateral on your personal side that you can do to secure this loan. The IRA is the borrower, and it tends to be deal dependent loan. So they'd like to look at the deal. They want to see how much equity is in the deal. Basically, this goes into the self-benefit side. You're not able to use your personal assets or your personal networking with a lender to get this loan. So they do require larger down payments. There's a little more risk to the lender in this situation. Not all of your large commercial operators are going to offer these types of loans, but they can be an effective way to leverage your retirement to, purchase a real estate property, purchase another real estate property. So these are an option as well. We're going to the next asset class here, and it kind of feeds a little bit off real estate. So we're going to go into promissory notes. So promissory notes, basically saying it's someone, you're lending money out of your retirement account to someone as an investment. You're going to get an interest rate or return back on your investment. So we're I think most of this is kind of geared towards secured notes, but there's different types of notes we will see. So non-secured basically means there's no collateral to the note. It's basically based on the good faith of the borrower. Secure notes mean there's some type of security there that's tied to the note. So your retirement account does have the ability to secure an asset if the lender defaults. In most cases, what we do like to see unsecured, we tend to see real estate being the main security, which is why we kind of put this right afterwards. So in this situation, the mortgage company becomes your IRA. Your IRA is lending out to someone for real estate investment, and the note is secured by the real estate. So you could, in the event of default, foreclose on the property and secure the property in your retirement account. And then we definitely see some other ones, convertible notes and different ones as well. We'll keep it pretty basic here. A couple reasons people like promissory note investing. You kind of get to set your own terms. There's nothing that says it has to be a 30-year term. It can be 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years. You basically get the full ability to negotiate terms with the person that needs to borrow the money. We won't get into UBIT issues too much on this, but there is a UBIT or UDFI tax you might see that involves with leveraged entities and also some tax or income you're receiving on that. If you're a debt investor versus an equity investor, you're going to avoid a lot of those issues that may arise on certain investments, but debt does not have that issue. All interest income is tax deferred or tax free. If we're seeing a lot of traction in the promissory note side, it's because a lot of times that doesn't tend to be an asset that outside of an IRA account has a lot of tax advantages. There's not write-offs. You're not getting depreciation if you're a lender. So a lot of people will look to do this out of their retirement account because you are getting that full tax deferred or tax-free status in a Roth account benefit in promissory notes. And like I said, you get the flexibility to set your own length, terms of the note, interest rate, how it's paid back. It does give you a lot of flexibility on how you want to structure those deals. Important rules that comes with promissory notes. The IRA investment is required to be held by a third-party administrator. On unsecured promissory notes, we do want to have the original note signed by the IRA as well as the borrower. We do want to see proof that the mortgage has been filed and so on. So, that's kind of Midland's responsibility as the IRA custodian. And then similar to the IRA, where it gets listed on all the documents that Midland Trust Company, for benefit of, that is going to get listed on the note as the lender in this situation. So we do want to see that the IRA is listed as the lender on any basic legal document related to this note investment. Obviously, it's protection of your retirement account. So in our example about secured notes, the IRA does have the ability to foreclose and then have ownership of the property at that point. All documents, this kind of would go for all investments. So when we say all documents are read and approved by our client and our IRA administrator signs, this would go for any investment. So, before Midland sends any money out for your investment, we're going to have you review all the investment documents and initial everything, make sure you've read it, you've approved it, this is the investment you want to do, and then Midland's IRA administrator will sign off on behalf of the retirement account. We talk about all interest income and payments do get sent to the IRA account. So we don't want them sending a personal check to you cashing and then send it back to the retirement account. And that would also apply to all investments, not just promissory notes or real estate. So as an example, we'll kind of go over of a secured promissory note by real estate. We tend to see either first or second lien position. You get to set your own terms. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a 30-year mortgage. You basically can state that between you and the borrower in that situation. As far, like I said, Midland doesn't basically guide or advise. The only thing as far as the minimum side, we would do like to see something that's not a sweetheart deal, something that is at least maybe the prime interest rate plus 1% or so. And as far as maximums, as long as it doesn't violate the state usury laws, which you could find, just doing a quick internet search, that's basically between you and the borrower in that situation. On the fee side, most of the time those fees are going to be paid by the borrower at their real estate closing. The documents we're looking for, Midland's bi-direction letter, which is basically an authorization for us to send funds out for your investment. We do want to see the promissory note, the mortgage that's filed, and then all the closing documents for that real estate transaction have the retirement account listed as well. So we'll review all those documents, have you acknowledge that you have read and approved them, and then we'll be able to send the funds out from there. We're going to go to the next investment type, and this is going to go under single member LLCs. That was at first, it's kind of the most basic example we can give. That would be where the IRA is the 100% owner. Most of these rules are going to apply to multi-member LLCs as well, where it's not just the IRA account being the member. It can also have other members, but the single member LLC is kind of the easiest way to think about this. Obviously, if you have questions on differences with multi-member, we can cover those as well. So some of the advantages, obviously, the big one that people like is more control. Gives you the ability to do a lot of these quick turnarounds for investments. I will say, if you're doing any kind of auctions, so tax deeds, auction properties, the LLC is going to be the way to go. Sometimes with those, you need funds within a day or two. They need at least a deposit quickly. It gives you the ability to go there and do these auctions or do them online in a quick turnaround. I know someone had a question about some cryptocurrencies. This is one way that we do see a lot of people directly invest in cryptocurrency as well. because then they have the ability to set the wallet. And there's different investment types, but obviously the big benefit is more control, quicker turnaround times on transactions. Quickly, somebody has multiple assets. Obviously, you can pull up our fee schedule on our website. I can send a link to where to find that as well. But as you start gaining assets as well, so when we're talking about one real estate property or one note, it's just a flat fee. It would be the same whether you have an LLC. As we start adding, 2, 3, 4, 5 different investments in your self-directed IRA, it can be much cheaper to house those all under an LLC and do your investment from there. Midland considers the LLC the asset, and then from there, the LLC is investing. So there is a bit of it could be a savings as far as, cheaper to have multiple assets, depending on the state you live on too. So obviously, if you have questions, you can ask us and we kind of break down what perceived cost you would have there. And if you have an asset that's going to have a lot of check writing out too, we kind of went into if you're going to rehab the investment property, and this is writing out of your retirement account, you have to send checks from it. This can kind of help as well. So instead of Midland having to cut, 10 checks to a contractor from the LLC, you can kind of do this yourself as well. In this example of the single member LLC, the IRA is the sole member. The client or a non-disqualified third party gets listed as the manager. Kind of this, a bank account is established for the LLC, which gives the manager the ability to manage those IRA funds that Midland will send to the LLC's bank account. Same rules do apply at the LLC level, so same prohibited party or prohibited transaction rules do apply, but it does give the LLC basically direct access to using those funds for that investment. And it does put more responsibility. So, if you see advantages, if I hear one that's kind of disadvantage, it does put a little more responsibility to make sure that all these rules are followed on the IRA holder or the manager, as they are basically have direct access to the retirement funds. But Midland does, still have a dedicated representative for you that even if you're holding all the funds in the LLC, if you have questions, definitely reach out to our dedicated service team. They'll be able to kind of go over different things, what you can and can't do as well. Okay, so next investment we'll kind of go over is private placements and private stock. This does cover a very wide range of investments. It basically meaning this is a private investment that's offered. It's not sold on the stock market or most exchanges, but this could be private companies, real estate syndications, hedge funds, whole lot of different investments that are kind of housed what we consider private placements or private stock. The chart there kind of gives a basic breakdown. The IRA is investing in private equity. As we kind of said, this isn't publicly done. The company is offering shares or raising capital in some way, and the IRA can be a subscriber or a limited partner in this deal. The IRA gets listed on those documents, and as investment returns are paid back to the private equity investors, the IRA gets those investments or returns. Some of the important rules to consider on the private placement side. Some private placement investments could be exempt from SEC regulations. Each one's going to have their own different type of filings that they're having to do, what type of offering that they are, offering to investors. So they're going to fall under different types of regulations. I will say most of them do have to be accredited investors. So in a lot of cases, even though you're doing it through your retirement account, they're still going to have some sort of questionnaire, some verification that you're an accredited investor and able to invest in their private offering. Like I said, private placements are not offered on the open market, and thus are not available to most people in typical IRA accounts. So, you may not see this as an option through a Charles Schwab or Fidelity account, just because it's not offered on an exchange. So examples of private placement, could be stock in a local bank, hedge funds, venture capital investments, startup tech, medical firms. group of private investors could be pulling capital in LLC. It definitely has a large offering of different types of investments that are considered private placement or private stock. Next, we get into precious metals. So you'll hear a lot of commercials all the time about holding precious metals in your retirement account, and this is kind of what they're talking about. They're talking about self-directed IRA, and through Midland, you can also hold precious metals in your retirement account. So obviously the most popular ones being gold, platinum, and silver. And obviously it puts on there, you can also trade major commodities through different exchanges as well. Precious metals can be purchased, sold in large quantities on these exchanges, and smaller increments can also be purchased by physical gold dealers. What that is really stating is obviously there's different ways you can invest in these precious metals through exchanges, futures, and so on. You can also directly hold physical gold in your retirement account. While owned inside the retirement account, precious metals are stored with a third-party depository. So if you are doing that directly holding physical gold in your retirement account, you can't actually hold them at your personal residence, in your safe or under your mattress, or anything like that. It actually does have to be held in a third-party depository. We work with a few different ones that specialize in this. They will either keep a segregated or a non-segregated account for your retirement account where they house the physical metal at that point. There are fineness requirements. So as we kind of went into, there's a purity basically that the gold has to be to qualify to be held in a retirement account. And this kind of goes into the prohibited investment of collectibles we talked about. If something was just partially gold, but it had a collector value, it probably is not going to qualify to be held as a precious metal in your retirement account. So there are some purity ratings that make it IRA eligible. Next, we'll go into futures trading and foreign exchange trading. So there's a few different ones. So this falls under, there's different ways to trade futures or foreign exchange in an IRA. One would be completely self-directed trading. You can trade futures or currencies completely independent within your self-directed IRA account. So Midland does the IRA reporting, and then your funds would actually be traded at a broker who lets you basically do your own futures contracts or foreign exchange trading there. There's also different offerings that will be broker assisted. So you're working with a professional broker in a situation and they kind of assist you in what trading you're actually doing. We also have clients that do completely managed accounts where the IRA account, we send it to the trading account, and then a manager is actually trading your funds and getting a return for you. And some of those even have automated trading where they have an algorithm set up or robots that actually are set to trade in different buy and sell signals, and they'll be trading your IRA funds immediately. So different strategies all fall under the same futures and forex models, and these are just different ways you can invest. But there are definitely a lot of clients who look to do any of these models for using their IRA accounts. Same thing, kind of important rules. Obviously, IRS does require an independent third party handle the IRA administration and cash flow the accounts. This is where Midland comes in. We handle all the IRA administration, and then separately there'll be an FCM or a broker that's actually doing the brokering of the investments. So we'll send those funds there, and then from depending on what strategy you choose, the investment will actually be done there, not at Midland. The funds will actually be done at the broker level. Contributions or deposits do flow back to the IRA first. They're sent directly to Midland. So if you are looking to add more funds to your trading account, this is a good example. You'll first put those funds into Midland so we can do the proper recording of the contribution or the transfer from a retirement account. And then from there, we will send it to the broker where you're doing your futures or forex trading. And then on, say you want to pull money back from your trading account, the funds do come back to Midland first. So we'll initiate with the broker saying, hey, our client wants to pull their money back. They will send it back to your Midland account. And then from there, you can do, if you're transferring elsewhere, or if you're looking to make a different type of investment, the funds do come back to Midland first from the trading account. Okay, so we covered a lot of different ones, and now I'll kind of go over what we consider, other investments. So we kind of talked on it. You're not just limited to the ones we covered. That does cover a large majority of the investments we see, but we definitely see different types of investments. We'll kind of go through a list of here. So Bitcoin's definitely popular right now. So we definitely see a lot of cryptocurrency investments, and there's different ways you can do that inside of an IRA account. We see oil and gas rights, tax certificates that we touched on, structured settlements, commercial paper, convertible notes, commodities, livestock, timberland, rights and warrants, accounts receivable factoring, and equipment leasing. Obviously, if you have any questions on whether a particular investment you have in mind can be held in a retirement account, definitely reach out. We can let you know whether we think it can be held in a retirement account, as well if it's administratively feasible as well. So for all of you, if you don't have a Midland IRA account, this is kind of how you would get started and get set up. You can open a IRA account at our website. You'll see a link there. If you go to our website, you'll also see an open account button on the homepage. Funded accounts, you can contribute, make an IRA transfer or roll over from an existing retirement account. And from there, just let us know when you're ready to choose your investment, and our team will kind of take from there and fund your investment. I'm going to leave my contact information here as well, and we'll start going over some questions as they come in.
Hey, hi, Matt. I'm going to actually help you and read the questions.
Would really appreciate that.
Yeah, since we got a lot in, I tried to answer some of them inside the chat box, but the ones I didn't get to, I had moved over to the questions box. So
perfect.
We'll just go through those. All right. From Rob, when you say insurance, do you mean on your own life insurance, or if you purchase a policy from somewhere else? I'm assuming when you were talking about life insurance and collectibles being prohibited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, this could cover a lot of different ways, but the rule states that your IRA cannot invest in life insurance, and one reason being life insurance can be a pretty tax beneficial status of investment anyways, but this would be indirectly or directly. So obviously your personal life insurance wouldn't be able to be held in your retirement accounts, and your IRA wouldn't be able to buy a life insurance policy on you. This would even go to if there was a viatical settlement fund, your IRA may not be able to invest in that because indirectly the investment is still life insurance related. So I hope that answers your question. Oops. Okay. But yeah, either directly or indirectly, the IRA account can't invest in life insurance.
Okay, Jack, with the self-directed Roth, can we trade options included naked puts?
So it will be broker dependent. So there's nothing that says that Midland account can't do this, an IRA account can't do this. Is definitely able to be done. So we talked about obviously the things you can't do. Certain brokers are going to have different rules on what they allow retirement investors to do. So the simple answer is yes, it can be done. The complicated things, it'll just depend on the broker you choose to work with on whether they allow that or not for your retirement account.
Are virtual currencies allowed?
Yes, they are able to be held in the retirement account. Currently at Midland, if you're directly looking to invest, our clients are doing this through the LLC option. So we're funding the single member or multi-member LLC. That LLC can then open a Coinbase or different virtual wallet account and invest directly. Also, we have clients who are looking to do, a certain fund. If there's a crypto fund, they can do that as well directly. They don't need an LLC for that option. And we're also exploring some different options for directly investing that, to be determined. Quickly, we should have some other options for you on that side as well.
Okay. Can I partner on a purchase with a self-directed IRA? So you did go over that a little. Can you just cover about partnering one more time?
Yeah. So simple answer would be yes. As it's asked, obviously we'd want more details on the situation, but yes, you can be a partner on, for example, a real estate property. Simple example I'll give: if you're purchasing a property, purchase price is around 100,000, you have 50,000 in your retirement account, and then you want to bring 50,000 to the deal, you can be 50-50 partners on that real estate purchase. You'd be tenants in common, two separate owners, one owning 50%, the other owning 50%. As long as it's a brand new purchase, you don't have any connection to that property currently, but yes.
Can you also touch more on rental real estate and LLC, like how that would work?
Sure. So how we kind of listed that the IRA is the direct owner, that they are the direct purchaser listed on the deed. This wouldn't be so much the case if you're doing it through an LLC. A lot of times the LLC is going to be listed as the owner on the property. So then as far as managing it, same rules would apply, but the tenant would then be able to pay rent to the LLC. You could deposit in your LLC bank account. As far as expenses go, the LLC could write the checks for any expense that comes up with the real estate as well. But yeah, basically everything gets done through that LLC account. You're not having to really do any operating of managing the property. And then if you are the manager of the LLC, obviously you're not collecting any type of personal payment or personal management expense. The IRA basically gets the full benefit. You're just you're free labor to your IRA account at that point.
Okay, sticking on the LLC topic, can multiple people own the LLC?
Yes, and they can be those prohibited parties that we listed. They can also be members. Where that does complicate things in is you are locked in at that ownership. If they're non-prohibited parties, obviously things can change. People can buy and sell each other out. But yes, we can definitely do multi-member LLCs where multiple people are members in that same LLC.
Okay, what happens when the LLC sells the property? Do I need permission from Midland before the property can be liquidated back to the LLC?
Nope, you win at that point. The LLC manager would be the one that signs all the closing documents, and then sale proceeds would flow back to the LLC. And then if your LLC just had one member being the IRA, if you didn't want to do any other deals in the LLC, the proceeds would go back to the IRA 100%. If you have multiple members, they can be split depending on ownership. Or you could do another deal directly from the LLC, so you wouldn't have to do anything at the LLC. If you want to do another investment from there, though, you can do it directly from the LLC without Midland's permission.
Okay, so I bought 2 acres of fruit trees in a Roth LLC. Could the LLC borrow against those to purchase more?
Yes. In practicality, it may be difficult, but nothing prohibits you from basically, think of this as a refinance or kind of a cash out refi. Obviously, if you can do it, then those funds are held by the LLC, that you don't get any personal cash out, and then they can be redeployed for another IRA investment. Obviously, practically speaking, you want to find a lender who's willing to do that. And when I talk about the non-recourse, I'll kind of touch on this because we can go into it. It could be a private loan as well. It just has to be structured as non-recourse. It doesn't have to be a commercial offered non-recourse loan. Private deals can also be structured non-recourse. But to answer your question, yes, you definitely can do it as long as you can find a lender who's willing to do a non-recourse loan on that deal.
Okay, LLC owns a rental property. Can the LLC manager do own maintenance on the properties, like changing the filters, etc.?
So we didn't kind of cover it too much, but there also is a sweat equity prohibited transaction where the IRA holder cannot do sweat equity or improvements to the property that include maintenance. So if the manager is the IRA holder, then no. If it's a unrelated third party, yes. Obviously, that kind of digs into more. So yeah, if you're a prohibited party, you are barred from basically doing your own work on a property.
Yes, that was one of the questions, was how much work can one do on a property that they own, if any?
Yeah, so as far as on the management side, you can collect rent and pay out expenses as the LLC manager in that situation. As far as anything else, you would have to hire that out to an unrelated or a non-disqualified third party.
Okay. All right. Keep going here. If I trade an IRA account and take out the profits, are they considered income, or I can't take out from the IRA account?
So if you're taking out funds from the IRA account, it's considered a distribution from the retirement account. So if we get rental income back, for example, it comes back to the IRA, and then you want to take some of those funds personally, we can send that to you. Depending on your type of IRA account and your age, there could be early withdrawal penalties and possibly taxes as well. But you can take personal distributions from the IRA.
All right. If I sell a property and lose money on the sale, is the loss deductible?
In most cases, in that situation, there would not be a personal deduction, if that's kind of what the question is. There are a small amount of situations we won't dig into right now because it's a whole new can of worms that where your IRA may need the deductions. But as far as it flowing back to your personal return, you won't get the deduction of selling at a loss.
Okay. Please give parameters for IRA to Roth conversions of 1, part of an LLC, and 2, taking one investment out of an IRA and converting it to a Roth. That was the last question on the questions tab, Matt, if you need to reread it.
Yeah, I think that's multiple. Okay, perfect. All right. So we'll start the first one, doing a conversion of part of an LLC. So what that would look like is obviously you'd have, say, a traditional IRA at Midland holds a certain percentage, we'll say 100% ownership of an LLC, and you're looking to convert half of it to a Roth. So you'd set up a Roth account at Midland, and then there would be an amendment to the LLC operating agreement, adding 50% ownership to the Roth account, and 50% ownership would stay with the traditional. We would want a valuation of assets held at the LLC, and then that portion that gets converted to the Roth, you would pay taxes on that conversion amount. But we could do basically an in-kind Roth conversion to a Roth. And then the second part, taking one investment out of the IRA and converting to Roth. In that situation, instead of actually converting a part of the ownership of the LLC, you would first retitle the investment from the LLC to the IRA, and then taking it out of an IRA and converting to Roth. So I think the question might have been taking it out of the LLC and then converting to Roth. And in that situation, we would just change the ownership to a Roth that way. If you took a distribution from the IRA to convert to Roth, you wouldn't be able to do an in-kind contribution to a Roth, but we could convert from a traditional to a Roth. I hope that answered the question.
That was good. Thank you, Matt. Do you get penalized by the IRS on a sour investment?
No. So if an investment ends up going bad, say it was a company you invested in and something didn't work out and the company ends up filing for bankruptcy in your retirement account, can't collect anything, there's no penalties or anything like that. It would be the same as if a stock lost value that you invested in the stock market. So no penalties as far as making it a poor investment, obviously, other than your retirement account balance takes a hit, but no additional penalties.
All right. What happens with a private equity in an LLC gets listed on stock exchange?
So this does happen on occasion where you'll have a company that maybe was pre-IPO when your IRA at Midland invested in it, and then it goes public, and your IRA now holds these shares of a public company. As far as there's nothing wrong at that point, it's completely fine. Your stock certificates are held by your Midland. Now, as far on a real life basis for your best interest, at that point we can transfer the ownership to a company that offers basically a brokerage. So that way, if you did want to sell from a brokerage standpoint, we just don't have the capabilities of selling it that quickly on a brokerage side. So what we tend to have seen at that point is once the stock basically goes public, you can contribute it or transfer the holdings to a large brokerage custodian that offers publicly traded stocks.
All right. What are the ownership restrictions for private investments with single LLCs? Example, what % of the business can you own?
You tell me what that question is. I just want to make sure I cover.
Oh, it's the last question on the questions tab by Randy. What are the ownership restrictions for private investments with single member LLCs? What % of the business can you own?
All right, so I think it would be if it was a multi-member. So if it's a brand new, we should probably dig into the question a little bit more, Randy, on a privilege just to make sure I answered it correctly. But at least my understanding of your question, if it's a brand new LLC that we're setting up and you don't own in the LLC at all personally yet, it can be whatever percentage of money in the deal. So your IRA can be a 1%er and you own 99, and vice versa. So it could be any percentage at all on a brand new purchase there. And then I said maybe it might make sense for us to have a separate. Now, if it's a existing business that you might be a small part owner of, and you're wondering if your IRA can buy into it, that would be a different discussion that we'll cover right now. But if I hope that answered your question, the first answer.
Thank you. Okay. Are precious metals limited to 1 or 2 storage facilities, or can we use one of our choice? For example, Fort Kobe in Panama City.
So 2 answers to that one. So you're not limited to 2 storage facilities. I think on our website we do list First State and Delaware Depository as being the ones we're most familiar with. We can work with any other domestic depository directly. Just let us know and we'll reach out to them to make sure we can arrange something. But there should be no issues there. Now, as far as international depositories, no direct way for Midland to do that. So in most cases, clients are doing the LLC route. They'll do a single member LLC. That LLC can then open if we're looking to use like international depositories.
All right. I thought we could have eagles as precious metals. More info on the purity requirements, please. Must they be actual money or not regarding precious metals?
So no. So most of your brokers will state whether it falls under IRA guidelines when you are purchasing things. So it's not to say it wouldn't apply. I want to say it's 99% purity. Off the top of my head, I didn't write it down, but I can send you some information to make sure. But yeah, if you're talking to your broker, check with them and see if a lot of times they'll advertise whether it meets IRA guidelines or not. It's not required to be. It could still be in a coin form. It doesn't have to be, or when I say it's collectibles, as long as it's meeting the purity. So a lot of times they'll have it. You don't have to buy just silver bars or gold bars. They can be different shapes. That doesn't matter. But the purity rating, I can send a little more information on that.
All right, thank you. For self-directed trading, do you establish the account in the name of the LLC? From Randy. For self-directed trading, do you establish the account in the name of the LLC?
So I'll answer in multiple ways. Not 100% sure on So if you're doing like commodities, futures, forex trading, the account can be directly held in the name of the IRA account at the broker level. So that would be probably the most common way. If you
And would
are,
that be in the name of the retirement account, Matt?
it would use the Midland Vesting, the Midland Trust Company as custodian, client name and number. If you are doing it through an LLC, then correct. If you are using a similar LLC, basically all the investments that LLC does are in the name of the LLC.
It looks like you answered his question, so
Okay, perfect.
that worked. Thank you. Okay, can I allocate funds into real estate with funds of trading account as leverage, partial payment of house, and rest other monies? That one was a little bit wordy.
Allocate funds into real estate. Funds from trading account.
Yes, so basically the same funds that you use to purchase real estate can be used to purchase other investments such as trading accounts. So I don't know if that
So
answers your
yeah,
question.
can I allocate funds into real
That was
estate?
Jason.
Yeah, I'll be trading account as lead.
And he did ask again, I think, up here. Yes, that's probably it, because he said, can you invest in real estate and trading accounts with the same money?
So we actually do send out the funds for either investment. So if you have $100,000 real estate purchase, we actually are sending $100,000 out there for your purchase. So Midland wouldn't hold any reserve money. We're not holding in the 100,000 as anything else. The money actually does go out for your investment. Same on the trading side. As far as would a non-recourse lender allow the asset to be considered, because the IRA is holding a trading account, so it is deal dependent, not even so much based on assets held in the IRA account. It really would be deal dependent, and they want to see a certain amount down. They do require sometimes a reserve fund on the real estate being non-recourse. So it's possible they'll okay with having those funds at a broker, but they do want to see a kind of a reserve to make payments as well. Not sure if that really answers the question, but partial payment for house and rest other monies. And then as far as can you purchase a partial amount of a house and then have a partner or some personal funds in there, you can do that. So you don't have to use the IRA doesn't have to be 100% owner of the house. So
Okay. All right. Can my Midland IRA invest into a specific company?
yeah, you definitely can. Obviously, they have to have an offering, bring on an equity partner. Some are actually always capital raising. So it just depends on the structure. But there's nothing that prohibits your IRA from investing in those things. It's just a matter of the structuring on how they're basically adding you as an equity partner. But
And it looks like you did answer Jason's question, Matt.
okay, perfect.
Okay. All right. How does foreclosure work when you partially provide funding for the property?
So it depends on what lien position the retirement account is. So if you are a first lien holder, basically you have first rights on the property to foreclose. If you're a second lien holder, your IRA's second lien hold position, you would get what's left after the first lien basically covers what's owed to them. Now, your IRA is foreclosing. To kind of go through what that process looks like, you would have an attorney that would actually file on foreclosure on behalf of the retirement account, and then say you do actually succeed in the foreclosure process, the IRA then owns the property. So your asset with Midland changes from a note on that property to you're actually directly holding that property.
All right. When it comes to being a realtor and or contractor, how much personal involvement is allowed?
Okay, so if you're a realtor, you can basically be the realtor on your, because I'll break these down into two different ones. For your transaction, you do waive all fees though, so you're not allowed to basically charge your IRA or make money off the transaction that your IRA account's doing. So you can actually act as your own real estate agent on the transaction. You do have to waive all fees with the purchase and sale. As far as a contractor, as long as you're subbing out anything and you're not making any income off of, basically you can organize everything, but as far as you can't use your own crew, your company wouldn't be able to do the work. You can sub out everything, but you wouldn't be able to make any type of income or any return off of the investment, property that your IRA holds.
Okay, makes sense. Can you speak a little more on non-recourse loans? Doesn't seem like many banks offer the loans.
Yeah, and we do have a sheet with some that we're pretty familiar with. Obviously, there's some that offer nationwide. There are companies that specialize in it. And I kind of touched on that. A private loan can also be structured as a non-recourse. Non-recourse basically meaning you're not, there's no personal recourse, but you're also not personally guaranteeing. They're not basing off your personal credit score. They really do tend to be deal dependent loans at that point. They tend to be higher interest rate. I don't have the term sheets in front of me, but they tend to be a little bit higher. You're not going to get 30-year. I do tend to see like 20-year on that side, and a little bit higher interest rate, just because the risk to the institution or the lender is a little bit higher. The most they can do is take back that property if you can't make those payments. But yeah, there are some that actually do specialize in it. It's not going to be your large commercial banks. A lot of smaller banks will offer it, community banks, and then there are some lenders that specialize in IRA lending. And like I said, reach out, and I do have a list of a few that we know that kind of specialize in that area.
All right. Is it considered a distribution if you had a loss in your account trading forex?
It is not considered distribution. It would just be based on investment loss. So you wouldn't be taxed or have to make up the difference with personal funds or like that. It's just that you lost money on your investment.
Is there a waiting period to purchase real estate after opening a self-directed IRA with Midland?
So we do have a 7-day right of rescission from when you open the account. And what basically that means is we don't send any funds out for your investment 7 days after you sign the application to open an account. And that's mostly following an IRS or government guideline as far as you have 7 days to kind of change your mind on different stuff. But no, after that 7 days, we can send the funds out and we can work on getting everything ready for your investment in that 7 days. So if you have a real estate property in mind that's closing, in a week or two, that whole time we're getting funds transferred in and getting your account set up, we can do a real estate closing where in that 7 days is done.
Okay. Are your sister or brother qualified to do maintenance on the property or not?
So they are non-disqualified parties, so they could do that. They could actually do those maintenance for you.
Great. That's awesome. I'd like my small construction company to lease space in a commercial building that is owned by my self-directed IRA LLC. Is this permissible?
I would need more information to give you a definite answer there, Travis. From what I can tell from your question, it most likely would not be. You would be basically, your company would be paying rent to your IRA account or the LLC that your IRA account owns. And it does have to charge rent also, because then it gets actual extra benefit. There's also a personal benefit there as well. There could be a way that's done, but for the information I have on your question, I would say it probably wouldn't be able to be done.
All right. Let's see. Okay. Can you invest Roth IRA in GP setup, whether as a profit interest or equity stake, to receive incentive fees from fund management? It's one of the last ones on the list now.
Yeah, I was reading it. It kept moving on me. Interest in equity stake to receive incentive. So we'll do the first part. Jeff, your Roth can invest in, I'm guessing it's a general partnership setup. And yes, that can be done. As far as receiving incentive fees from fund management, I need a little more info on that. So I've seen somewhere they would give, either like a personal benefit or something like that.
He said, think about a hedge fund structure. So hedge fund sells GP stake is what he said in the chat.
Okay. And Jeff, are you basically, you're part of the hedge fund in that situation? You wouldn't be a limited partner. You would be a general partner in there.
Employee.
Mr.
Roth.
Okay.
Employee of the investment manager.
I'll definitely disclaimer this with definitely consult with the attorney or any advisor that the fund has or in general. In practical,
different entity.
What was that? Sorry, Brendan.
He says it's a different entity, but related.
Jeff, I'm actually gonna have to say let's schedule a call on that one. I don't want to give you the wrong answer. I want all the details on that one. So
yes, if you could, Jeff, if you want to give me your email address, I can have Matt call you, or if you want to call Matt, either one works.
Yeah.
Okay, we're almost done with the questions here. This was a lot. Can an LLC set up with a traditional IRA being the larger stakeholder make contributions to a Roth setup within the same LLC?
So I'll first start with all contributions do go to the IRA directly first. So if you do have both accounts invested in LLC, you do contribute to the Midland account first, and then we can always send additional funds to the LLC. And then the second part would be, can your traditional contribute to the Roth is kind of what I think. So you would contribute and then you would do a conversion at that point. And obviously the easier way to do that, especially with cash, is to contribute to the traditional IRA, convert that to the Roth IRA, and then we can send the additional funds to the LLC. Something we didn't kind of get into, but if you do have, we kind of touched on it, but if you have multiple account types invested in the same LLC, you are then kind of locked into those percentages in the LLC because your traditional IRA would be a prohibited party to your Roth IRA. So then new contributions to the LLC have to be pro rata. So in a roundabout way, the way it was explained in the question, it'd probably be a no in that situation, but you can still do conversions outside the LLC.
Okay, great. May I purchase and hold state property tax notes in my IRA?
Yep, that's an allowable investment inside of an IRA. Like I said, depending on the investment purchase, how to purchase them, they may be required to do an LLC just for the ease of purchase, but it can definitely be held in an IRA.
All right, and last but definitely not least, can my son do maintenance on my property for payment?
So your son would be a prohibited party to the IRA and would not be able to do maintenance on the property for free or for payment. He wouldn't be able to do those.
Okay. All right. That looks like all of our questions for now. Looks like one person's typing. What about your brother? Your brother is allowed to do maintenance on your property. Yes, that's okay. Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you so much. Brother, sister, aunt, uncles, cousins, all allowed. So,
yep.
Anyway, Matt, you did a great job. You answered a lot of questions thrown at you. If anybody has any questions or would like any additional materials, please email me or Matt, and we will get that over to you. But thank you so much. If your son is employed by the external maintenance company, is that okay? Do you want to answer that one real quick, Matt? If your son is employed by the external maintenance company, is that okay? I mean, technically, he's not the owner of the company, so I guess that would be okay if he's works for the company, that's one thing, but
Yeah, to give you a definite answer, I would have to have obviously more details on that, on the structuring, but from what the question is, it can be done as long as the son doesn't have like an equity share. That would complicate things. But as far as you choosing a company and your son being employed there, that should be fine. But obviously, we'd want a little more details before we'd say definite stamp of approval.
okay, awesome. Well, you did awesome. We do have another webinar coming up on January 26th on creative ways to structure 1031 exchanges, which is another side of our business. So if you would like to attend that one, you can register on our website. Other than that, thank you, Matt. Thank you all for attending. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks.